We are Monstrous Femme Films, the collective behind the sex-positive Neo Giallo Fanatico and the retro summer camp creature featurette Camp Calypso.
We make progressive political horror through a queer feminist lens.
We are about to begin production on our next film, a 70s prom night pro-choice body horror titled Baby Fever.
Hello, welcome to the Bomb Squad, and welcome back to our October Texas Halloween. Texaween is what I'm going with.
No.
Leatherween. No, wait, Leatherween.
Leatherween, that's probably a BDSM club.
Leatherween is a very different context, and I'm down for it. I'm your host, writer-director Andrew Hada. I'm also the director and writer of such movies as Borderland and The Last Ones. Go check those out. They're available somewhere, but I'm sure if you use Google, they're available on google.com. If you type in Last Ones or Borderland, you should get something that you can purchase. It might be a game, it might be a South African movie, or it might be my movie. Whichever one, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Go buy them today. And we're here back to cover. We're almost like we're now at the tail end of these movies because we only have two left after this one. We covered
Only two left.
Only two left. We've gotten through 6 of the 8 where we are talking about this one. Josh, what's this one about? I hope it's not about teens going to some random place and then getting stopped.
It is. Well, they don't even get stopped, but let's not get into that. This is about a little baby Leatherface who learns how chainsaws work, how masks work. It's his origin story.
I know when you were watching the original remake, you were like, wait, how did that sheriff get the gun? Well, guess what? All those answers are solved in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning. Let's get into some technical stuff before I tear this movie apart. Okay, so this movie was made in 2006. It was directed by Jonathan Liebers. Ooh, this is gonna be fucking hard. What if it's like just Jonathan Walker and I'm just that dumb that I can't pronounce that name? Jonathan Liebesman, who also directed Battle LA and the first Ninja Turtles remake, and also something called Genesis and Catastrophe. Let's find out what that's about.
That's what this podcast is about now, that movie.
In a squalid Austrian hospital, an overworked doctor tends to the difficult birth of Clara. We learn that Clara has lost 3 previous babies and her husband is pessimistic about the survival of this one. Oh my god, this movie is about what happened if Hitler was a baby.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, okay, so this movie stars Jordana Brewster.
It does.
It stars our own Fast and Furious Jordana Brewster. It stars Matt Boner from Magic Mike and also, I guess, White Collar.
Yeah, it's weird. When I was like, wait, the white collar guy is supposed to be the tough one?
It stars American Horror Stories lead actor. It also stars Diora Bard. Why do I read the names?
Diora Bard? I don't know how to say it.
Diora Baird, who's also in Friday the 13th, the remake, which also is produced by these guys, and also Taylor Hadley, who's in nothing I've ever seen. The Bomb Squad, we like to keep things good and positive. That's why we're never gonna review the Hitler movie. But also, this movie was rough. This is probably the worst movie that we've seen since Assassin's Creed.
You know, you say that, but I do have to give it a couple points of credit. You know how in the last one, I was like, there's nothing to indicate this takes place during the 70s, but in this one, they're like, hey, did you know about Vietnam? We need to talk about it every 5 minutes.
We'll jump back to the opening, but yeah, one of my favorite scenes is at the very beginning. Matt Bomer. I'm just gonna call him White Collar. White Collar and Jordana Brewster. I was gonna call her Mia from Fast and Furious. And Jordana Brewster are like in a pool, and like the guy's like, hey, I want a little prize, and she's like, you know what's a real prize? Me driving all the way across Texas for you to go so that you can re-enlist into the army, and you only have 2 more days before you have to be back at band camp, which is about 600 more miles or whatever. And it's like, you guys are trying to do the Jessica Biel like exposition and like witty diet, like clever, like back and forth between the
Yeah.
couple, but it's so awkward and terrible that it's not like it's just hilarious back
Yeah.
exposition. And that kind of explains a lot of this movie. So, but yeah, every line is like, "Hey, are we going to Vietnam?" It's like, we sure are. And it's like,
So
honestly,
you knew it
like,
was the 60s.
your leg is getting cut off in Vietnam or here. Like, what is the difference? Um, 1352,
So like
another Andrew special edition. Um,
this
so
is,
we
this
okay. So
is
this movie's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like it's very like we're talking about the openings and it explains so much. It in a way it reminds me of the Star Wars A Solo Story where they're like, here's how he got his vest, here's how he got his
Yeah,
like they do that for everything that was in the last movie.
it
They're
does.
like,
It does the worst prequel stuff. It does, like, the only thing they carry over from the remake is not having a theme in any way, which is the worst part of the movie.
yeah.
It does everything that bad remakes does. It does everything that bad gore fests do. It's like everything is a mistake. But also, okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Also, another cliche of remakes, I mean of prequels, that this movie cannot not do is it has like 5 openings. So it
Yeah.
starts off with like the my girl. It's not her, but it does look like her.
It's
And
a big lady having a miscarriage.
well, she's not, like, at first they don't even know what she's having. It's like, oh, it turns out she's pregnant. But also, like, the foreman is like laying on her belly and he's like listening to her, but like blood is shooting out of her between her legs. And it's like,
Yeah.
anyone with a brain would know what's happening. Like, why is he still like on top of her, like talking to her? So anyway, then she has a baby, and also she's clutching a cross, and it's like, oh, now they're super religious in this one. Okay. And then she has the baby, and then the guy's like, oh, it's a monster. And it's like, and it's Texas, so then he puts a bounty on her for $10,000. Um, uh, and so then it cuts to the factory closing, and it's like a guy, and he Leatherface is working, and he has like a leather mask over his face instead of the human mask. And so he's like working, cutting up bodies, which they still have, even though they said that the plant has been closed for a week. I guess they just keep meat around to
Well,
be like cut
he
up.
still has the old meat in there in the next movie, so they had to have some
Yeah.
meat still there, you know.
Yeah. He has meat all the time. So then, like, they're like, go, we're going to close tomorrow. Go tell him to leave. And it was like, okay, if it was me and my job, like, it's my last day on the job, and they're like, hey, go tell that 7-foot monster of a man who's
It's
like
clearly mentally
400
disturbed.
pounds. Yeah,
Yeah.
and is wearing like a mask, and and he never talks to anyone. He just cleaves things. Go tell him that it's time to go. I'd be like, for what? Like, why? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, oh, they're gonna arrest him? Yeah, I'm just gonna leave. If he wants to go, he can go. If he wants to stay, he can stay. It's no longer my job. I don't work here
But
anymore.
it does lead to a great moment because he's like he doesn't even try to nicely fire him. You don't even need to be like that aggressive. You can try, but anyway, like Leatherface, you're like, oh no, is he gonna kill him? But he just looks at him and then he drops his cleaver, but it falls in such dramatic slow motion for some
Yeah,
reason.
this
Like
movie really loves.
it's a weird like it's like there's a lot of weird like why did you do that choice like
This,
directorially? Yeah.
yeah, this movie has so much slow motion. So yeah, so then he leaves, and then it cuts to the boss, and then he's come back to kill the boss for no reason. And it's like,
The boss is
okay,
like, time to wrap up my office chainsaw that I love that's on my desk here. He's
he
putting
should
it
have,
in like a
yeah.
suitcase.
He's like, time to go talk to my son, Mr. G. Abbott. He's gonna be governor one day. That one I'm keeping in, guys.
Well, he did destroy the local economy, so it does
Yeah,
fit.
it fits. And so then Leatherface kills him, and then it cuts to the most egregious problem with this movie and the biggest mistake that this movie full of mistakes makes. So then it cuts to like the sheriff outside the Hewitt house, and it cuts to like someone answering the door, and they're like, "Hey, your boy just killed someone. Time to go." And so they're gonna go stop Tommy, and then you find out that Arlie Emery it was never the sheriff. He actually kills the sheriff and then takes his uniform, and
Yeah,
it's
which
like
in a way undercuts one of the better parts of the first
no,
one,
it
where
undercuts the best part of the remake, which doesn't make like the best part. Like again, I said the remake doesn't really have a theme. If anything is approaching theme, it is the privilege of white men in Texas who get to just be sheriff off of no, even though
right,
they're
right,
like
like the
sacrificed.
right there to the writer, the idea that a normal sheriff could also be a murderer is like unheard of, and that's completely insane, even in like 2006. You know,
Yeah, I feel like you can just feel the studio or someone just in there being like, "Oh, let's make it so the sheriff wasn't actually a sheriff, and so that we need to make sure we back the blue." And it just feels so gross and
which
also
is
ruins the
and yeah,
original.
yeah. I mean, obviously, it's like it undercuts like any kind of interesting thing about like power and privilege, but at the same time, too, it retroactively like makes the town dumber because it's like, oh, it's just a normal town until he killed the sheriff, and then even other people outside of his family or were just okay with it, like went along with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's like
yeah, they're
it,
just
like it's
like
so much
hanging out.
scarier that the whole town was in on it from the start.
Right.
You know, so
And not only that, but also just Arlie Emery's like in the original remake, in the last one, he's as formidable as Leatherface. Like again, partly because of his privilege, which is what made that character so interesting, but also just the confidence that he has um in like killing these people and like the power he exerts over them. And in this one, he's like a little baby. Like he's always scared. They're always getting the upper hand on him. He like constantly like gets tricked or like he's begging for his life. Like again, there's like one scene, okay. I'm going to jump right ahead, but this shows exactly um what the problem is. So okay, there's two scenes, but let's go to one of them. So at one point, at one point, one of the people like escaped from the sheriff, and he calls him like, and the sheriff's he has his gun on him, and he's like, "I'm gonna shoot you," and then the guy's like, "You're not gonna shoot me. You're a pussy." And the sheriff's like, "Oh no!" And then like the sheriff gets all scared, and the guy's able to run away. But then he tries to go save other people, and then he gets caught by Leatherface. And then the sheriff like goes up to him and he goes, "You said I was a pussy, but my nephew Tommy ain't no pussy. Why don't you go hang out with him?" Which again, I'm sorry for the language, but these are the lines. But I just want to say that this undercuts his character so much because my nephew Tommy ain't no pussy is not a threatening line in any way. Like that's the equivalent of like, "Hey, my buddy over there wants to ask you out."
yeah,
Like
it's like
it's just such
I'll
a
get
weak.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's
you wait till my dad comes home and he's gonna beat all your asses. Like that's what it sounds like, and it's such a like terrible line. But then there's another scene, like it's right after that. But he runs into they have a girl tied up, and he tells her that he loves her in like a sad weeb way. And it's like,
yeah.
what? Like, why are you guys undercutting? Like,
Yeah,
just as
what
a,
is this character? Yeah, it's
it's
like I don't even know what he's supposed to be other than he has to like narrate what like the scenes in a way, you know.
yeah, he's the only one who can talk, so he has to talk for Leatherface. But like in the first one, Jessica Biel literally runs over him with his car, and he's still trying to shoot at her, even though like his legs are gone. And in this one, he can't even like have a woman that he's gonna torture without saying he loves her. Like what? Like it does, and I hate it. Like I'm like so mad at this right now. I hate it because it again it feels like this weird studio note like, oh, you can't have cops be the bad guy. And B, it's also like that weird studio note where it's like, hey, why don't you show them that cowards or that bullies are cowards too? Like if you confront them. And it's like, yeah, some bullies are cowards, but A, that's super cliched, and B, sometimes they're not. Like you can't
And it's not like,
it
well, because in the first one they try to stand up to him, but he gives them an unloaded gun and stuff. So it's like he never gives them the upper hand. And in this one, it's more of like a, oh no, he almost never has the upper hand, but it's only like coincidence that he didn't die like that instant. You know what I mean? Like it's like he's
yeah.
not smart, he's lucky, kind of.
Yeah, it feels very like, oh look, you if you shame Lindsey Graham, eventually he'll have to admit he's wrong. It's like, no, sometimes it doesn't matter if you point out their hypocrisy. They do not care. They do not believe in any of the shit anyway. Ted Cruz does not believe in anything he says. That shouldn't comfort you. That should frighten you that this is his
Right.
rhetoric.
Like
And
that's
that's
worse than like the like bullies will back down. Yeah, which is always
yeah,
like that really goes against all the other movies.
they knew there was at least some intelligence going into that, and this one just doesn't have that. It doesn't even, and it's not even like the next generation, where it's like, yeah, it's not smart, but it does have a theme that it's going
Yeah,
for,
and
and
it's
it's
like
like,
kind of silly and it's going in this Matthew McConaughey direction.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think like that's the problem with this is that it's just not there. It's just nothing of a film. Like even in the trivia, it's like, oh, they didn't want to do a sequel, but people kept asking for one. It's like that's not an excuse to do a sequel, guys. Just say no.
It almost it's like
Just no.
you know how Gremlins 2 was done with contempt. This
Yeah.
almost feels like it was done with like not silly contempt, where it's like, yeah, I'll make your sequel. Fuck you, you know,
Yeah,
like.
it almost feels like they just had the outline and they're like, that's good, whatever. And then the director was like, what if the baby was Hitler? And they're like, stop suggesting that. It can't be that. It takes place in the 60s. It can't be. He's like, what if Jordana Brewster's name was Clara Hitler? It's like, that doesn't even, how does that make sense? She's from Texas. God, this guy's a one trick pony. His trick is that it's secretly baby Hitler every time. Um,
They really
the
missed a
worst part is
chance.
now I have to
I knew they
read.
weren't going to do this, but they could have thrown in a reference to the one guy from the original who did go to Vietnam. I was like, you know what? I would have given it some points. Chop Top from part 2.
Oh, that would have been so good if it turned out to be Chop Top.
If it either was him or they referenced him like going to Vietnam, I don't know.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
that would have also
do something for the fans. Give me something to latch on to, you
like
know?
that would have been so good if like Leatherface or like the sheriff like accidentally shoots the Vietnam guy and then he like gets his memory erased and he turns into Chop Top over the course of the film. Oh my god, that would have been so amazing.
Yeah.
But
But
again,
no fun allowed, yeah.
that would have involved Brian Fuller, or Brad Fuller. I keep calling him Brian, and Brian's a good one. Brad Fuller watching any of the other previous Texas Chainsaws, and I don't think he did. But yeah, this movie it's tough, and I will say, like again, it looks really nice. It looks like Texas.
Yeah, and it's like Arlie Ermy isn't doing a bad job. I mean, he always does the same job, and it's a good one. But it's like
Nobody's doing a bad job
it's
out
just
of
more
the
the like
actors.
the scripted. It's just very like you're not giving them anything good, you know.
Yeah, like the girl, like the sexual girl. She like this whole time I was like, you're in Friday the 13th remake. You don't like you're better than this. Because she's trying so hard and the movie's just giving her nothing, you know? Um, and then like, yeah, the guys are fine. Leatherface also does a good job. The My girl steals the show once again with her little waddle. Um, and yeah, also I didn't talk about this last time, but since we have time this time, let's do it. Yeah, the My girl is mine and Pablo, who's talked about on this podcast. It's he's our she's our favorite character. Like for years, we said my for no reason. Whenever like something was like delicious or like something looked good, we go, oh my. Like for way longer than you should have considering the movie it came from
I mean,
and how
you
nobody else
also said
understood it.
you lose Tony Stark for years. That's not even a movie you would defend. it's the worst Iron
I
Man
feel like
movie,
you lose. I still say it. I say it now. I mean, it has
unless
the
you
best
count
trailer.
most Avengers movies.
What happened to my girl? She's still acting. She's amazing. I'm gonna put you in something, my girl. You know what I'm gonna do since we're here and we're bored? Her name is Kathy Lamkin, and she is still working. She just did. Oh no, she did a short in 2014. Was the last thing she did. But I'm gonna hire her for something, and her name is Kathy Lampkin. She does a generally good job in this and in almost every movie she's in. So I don't want you guys to think that like we're making fun of her. I
No,
really
she
don't.
is the best part.
Yeah,
She's in the best
she's
scene
the
of this movie, and she's one of the best parts of the first movie.
and she's the best part of No Country for Old Men. So she's always the best part. But yeah, so like yeah, she's really good. I just call her my girl because again, she's so like recognizable in that role. But but yeah, go love her. She's amazing. And that's okay. So we got two movies left. We're now leaving the remakes, and I think now we're going back. I think I know Texas Chainsaw 3D is a sequel to the original. Those always go great. And then the next one is a prequel to the original. So can't stop this fire that
Oh
we're
God,
on.
there's another prequel. Jesus.
Yeah, but that one's a prequel to the original. It's called Leatherface, and you can only find it on Peacocks. But yeah, so next, join us next week as we continue, as we talk Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. No, it's just called Texas Chainsaw 3D. And guys, you know this one's gonna be good because it was the start of a trilogy that never happened.
Oh man.
But
Just like the Mummy.
it stars one of our favorite horror scream queens, and we'll let you know who that is next week. Or if you check the poster, you'll probably find out. But yeah, come back next week. We'll talk about it, and we're almost back to our summer of guests. Also, watch and subscribe, like and subscribe, and also go buy my movies. Go buy my movies, and then tell me that how dare I make fun of this movie when I made that movie. Pick whichever one you want. Roald Dahl, if like I do like that he was like, okay, now what should I write? Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? No, let me write. I got another movie to figure out. I got another book that I need to get out before I get to Charlie and the Glass House. Also, for our wrap up of all the series, we're going to have a special guest on that you may or may not know depending on the schedule of our summer of guests. But yeah, so come back for that. It'll be fun, and we'll see you guys next time on Texas Chainsaw 3D. I really hope this was the worst of them and things get
Yeah,
better.
I
At
mean,
least
I hope so, but I'm not confident.
I know I'm not confident either. At least in a way
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, I hope that this movie is like worth talking about because yeah, this one was a real bummer, guys. Anyway, check it out if you want. I'll never say not to check out something. The music was good. It looked good.
The my scene was good.
The cast was great. The directing was, I mean, it was fine. It's just they had nowhere to go, and it felt like a studio.
It was a movie that shouldn't have existed.
Yeah. But yeah,
It's the Age of Ultron.
it's the Jurassic Park of movies, not the movie, but the theme park. I'm gonna start referencing the theme park in Jurassic Park as if it's a real place. All right, guys, we'll see you next week on whatever the show's called. My brain is dead. This is a late episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. 'Cause we did not.